What you resist persists, but what you accept transforms. Imagine waking up on an ordinary day and suddenly realizing that everything you believed to be your identity is nothing more than a reflection of other people's expectations. Your personality, your opinions, your fears, all shaped by invisible forces like strings pulling a puppet. And the most alarming part? These forces have been guiding your life without you even noticing. Carl Jung, one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, warned us about this grand illusion. He told us that most people don't live as authentic individuals, but as projections of a larger system, a system that defines us and guides us from the moment we're born. From birth, we're programmed to fit in, to follow rules, to be accepted. Society gives us a name, a nationality, a culture, a set of values, and without realizing it, we begin to confuse this imposed identity with who we truly are. But here's the uncomfortable truth, the one that's hard to face. If you've never questioned these norms and conditionings, then you've never truly been free. Jung developed the concept of individuation, a deep and transformative psychological process that allows a person to become truly themselves, a unique, authentic being, free from the invisible chains shaping their psyche. But this process doesn't happen by chance. It requires a shock of awareness, a painful awakening to realize just how controlled we've been in every part of our lives. In this video, we're going to explore how external and internal forces influence your mind and keep you from experiencing real freedom. We'll uncover the hidden mechanisms behind psychological manipulation, and more importantly, we'll understand how the process of individuation can set you free from all of it. Because once you awaken to your truth, no one and nothing will ever have the power to control you again. Have you ever felt like some of the decisions you make in life aren't truly yours? As if some invisible force was pushing you to act a certain way? That's not just a coincidence. Jung discovered that most of our behavior doesn't come from our conscious mind, but from the collective unconscious, a deep reservoir of psychological patterns we've inherited over the course of human evolution. These patterns shape our worldview without us even realizing it. Since the earliest days, human beings have lived under narratives created by society. The archetype of the hero, the ruler, the sage, the maiden, all of these patterns live within us, and they influence our actions in ways we barely notice. You're not just acting as an individual, you're immersed in a much bigger story, one where your role was written long before you were even born. Society defines what it means to be successful, what it means to fail, what it means to be good or bad. And these definitions don't come from your individual consciousness, but from a set of collective values that control your desires, your ambitions, and even your fears. When we're faced with these norms, what's considered normal or acceptable is no longer a conscious choice, but an external imposition that shapes how we see the world. Jung described the persona as the mask we wear to interact with the world. From childhood, we learn that certain behaviors are rewarded, while others are punished. Over time, we adjust our personality in order to be accepted, whether at work, in our families, or in relationships. But here's the big problem. The stronger your persona becomes, the weaker your true self gets. The persona can be so convincing that you start to believe it's who you really are. If your persona is that of a nice, agreeable, always harmonious person, you might never express anger or disagreement, turning yourself into an emotional puppet for others. While we project this socially acceptable mask to the world, something starts happening inside us. Everything we repress begins to gather in the shadow. The shadow is made up of aspects of our personality we deny, reject, or simply refuse to accept. Their desires, impulses, and thoughts we judge as inappropriate or undesirable. But ironically, they continue to influence our actions, whether we're aware of it or not. When someone feels an irrational anger toward another person, they're often projecting onto them an aspect of themselves they refuse to accept. Likewise, when we idolize or envy someone, it may be because that person represents a part of us we've repressed. And if we don't integrate our shadow, it will continue to control us from the inside out. These are three of the main psychological mechanisms operating in the background, controlling us in invisible ways. The collective unconscious, which imposes social roles upon us. The persona, which makes us act in ways to please others and hide our true self. And the shadow, which stores all that we've rejected and secretly manipulates our behavior. But those aren't the only forces of control. There's something even more powerful that keeps us trapped: society itself and its mechanisms of manipulation. Jung believed that the process of individuation is, above all, an act of liberation. But liberation from what? The answer is simple, yet deeply unsettling. Liberation from the unconscious control that society has over your mind. From the moment we're born, we're placed into a web of rules, values, and expectations that shape our worldview. What's considered normal, what success looks like, what it means to live a meaningful life. None of this comes from our individual consciousness, but from a larger system that defines and conditions us. True freedom begins the moment we question these impositions, the moment we stop seeing life through the lenses that society gave us and start seeing it through our own eyes. Only then can we walk the path of individuation, a path that's painful but profoundly liberating. It's a process of healing, of reconciliation with the self, where we're no longer controlled by external forces, but finally become the authors of our own life, our own choices, and above all, our own truth. So, if you still feel like something's missing, if you feel like you haven't yet discovered your true essence, then maybe it's time to ask yourself, are you ready to begin the process of individuation? Are you prepared to awaken from all these illusions and live according to what your soul truly desires? The journey won't be easy, but the freedom it brings is beyond compare. This unconscious desire for social approval is one of the most effective tools of control ever created. From an early age, you're encouraged to conform, to follow patterns, to fit in. And when you start believing you're doing this out of your own free will, the system has already won. Social media amplifies this phenomenon even more. Instead of expressing who you truly are, you begin to shape your identity around likes, comments, and followers. You mold your face, your speech, your gestures, but stop and ask yourself, who are you when no one's watching? Carl Jung understood a disturbing truth. Real freedom will never be possible as long as you remain unconsciously submissive to the social forces surrounding you. And then, the inevitable question arises, why do you submit? Why do you accept these invisible chains without even questioning them? The answer isn't out there. It's within you, in the silent depths of your psyche. External control is only possible because there's fertile ground inside us that allows it to take root. Our insecurities, unresolved traumas, and unconscious complexes. One of the main fuels for this invisible prison is the desperate need for validation. You seek recognition because, on some deep unconscious level, you feel you're not enough, not good enough, not worthy enough, not strong enough. This feeling often takes root in childhood, when we learned we're only loved if we please, only seen if we obey, only accepted if we fit in. Later, this pattern transfers to the world. Co-workers, partners, bosses, and even strangers on the internet. You adjust, you shrink, you shapeshift, because you believe you'll only be worthy of love if you meet expectations. And as long as you keep looking for recognition outside of yourself, you become a hostage to anyone who promises to give you what you think you lack. As Jung observed, those who don't learn to confront their own shadow will inevitably be manipulated by it. Because when your self-worth depends on other people's approval, one single criticism, one rejection, or one failure, and everything falls apart. You become vulnerable, fragile, easy to control. Another force that keeps you trapped is unresolved trauma, emotional wounds buried deep within the soul, still pulsing silently beneath the surface. These wounds give birth to beliefs, limiting beliefs about who you are and what you deserve. If you were rejected in the past, you may unconsciously believe you're unworthy of love. If you were humiliated, you may carry the belief that you'll never be good enough. And that's exactly where the chains tighten. When you believe these internal lies, you become receptive to external narratives that promise protection, belonging, and safety. But all of it comes at a cost. What happens when you remain in this prison for too long? The name for that is psychological conformity. Conformity goes far beyond just following rules. It's the moment when external expectations become part of your own mind. You no longer know what is truly yours and what was implanted. And the most frightening part, it all happens without you even noticing. The human mind builds defenses to avoid discomfort. Challenging society, it hurts. Rejecting external validation, it hurts. Facing your own traumas, that hurts too. So, out of fear of pain, you choose the comfort of illusion. You accept ready-made narratives. You follow scripts written by others. You believe you are what the world says you must be. But that comfort is a trap, a soft illusion that slowly lulls your soul to sleep, because by avoiding the confrontation with your true essence, you deny yourself the right to become who you truly are. As Jung once said, what you deny subjugates you, but what you accept transforms you. And that's where everything begins to change. If you don't accept your own truth, If you keep rejecting the repressed parts of yourself, if you insist on conforming to external expectations, you will never be an authentic being. You will be just a projection, a refined mask of what society wants you to represent. Now that we understand why we submit, comes the most important part of this journey: how to break these chains and truly begin the path to psychological freedom. Carl Jung called this path individuation, the process through which a person becomes who they truly are. It may sound simple, but in practice, it is one of the most complex and demanding journeys a human being can take. Why? Because to individuate means to break away from everything that was imposed upon you, everything that was conditioned, absorbed, inherited. It's like peeling away layer after layer until you touch the living essence of your soul. It's a process of integration where you confront the unknown that lives within you and finally learn to accept what you've always tried to hide. Individuation isn't about becoming different. It's about becoming whole. It involves integrating all parts of the psyche, the conscious and the unconscious. Jung understood that the human mind is made up of multiple layers, some visible, others buried under fear and repression. To ignore those parts is to invite suffering and manipulation. The work of individuation is like an inner alchemy, turning fragmentation into unity, embracing darkness without being consumed by it, embracing light without becoming a slave to vanity. But for that to happen, you must confront, and the most terrifying confrontation is with the shadow. The shadow carries all the things you consider unacceptable: envy, anger, selfishness, impulses that contradict your idealized self-image. Jung said it clearly: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Or, as he put it elsewhere, what you don't integrate will control you. It acts behind the scenes, sabotaging your steps, influencing your choices, shaping your desires. What you reject starts to possess you. Integrating the shadow is an act of courage. It means acknowledging it, admitting it, looking it in the eye and saying, "You too are part of me." That's the first step, and maybe the hardest one. But that's exactly where true transformation begins. Accepting the shadow doesn't mean surrendering to your lower impulses. It means recognizing their existence and learning how to channel them consciously. Anger can become strength. Envy can become inspiration. Fear can become wisdom. And this is where creative expression becomes a powerful ally. Art, writing, dance, music, they are sacred paths to give voice to the forgotten parts of your soul. Jung believed that creativity is a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, an inner oracle that reveals, without judgment, what is ready to be healed. And what about the persona, the mask you wear every day? That, too, needs to be examined with care. It's not about abandoning the persona completely, but rather not confusing it with your true self. The persona is necessary for social interactions, but it must be light, fluid, and conscious, not a prison disguised as identity. Individuation is a process of death and rebirth. It's painful because it requires you to let go of comfortable illusions. Many of them have been nurtured for years. Some have become part of your identity, but if they are not left behind, you will never be free. When you become whole, no one can manipulate you anymore. When you integrate the shadow, it stops whispering betrayals in your ear, and when the persona is used with awareness, it no longer hides the soul, it serves it. During individuation, illusions die, and with them, parts of you that seemed essential, but were merely reflections of others' expectations. Jung understood that being an authentic individual is to live courageously in a world that rewards conformity. It's being awake in a world where so many still sleep. And then, something curious starts to happen. The people around you begin to notice. You're no longer the same. You become less predictable, less easy to categorize, and that disturbs them because your freedom confronts the invisible prison of others, and the light of your consciousness illuminates the shadows they're still unwilling to face. Psychological freedom is solitary because most people don't want to deal with their own shadows. They'd rather follow the script imposed by society, even if it means living a life devoid of authenticity. Jung asserted that loneliness does not arise from the absence of people, but from the inability to communicate what is essential to your soul. And the further you advance in the process of individuation, the more you realize certain conversations sound empty, certain groups feel limited, certain relationships become superficial. It's natural to feel isolated, but this loneliness is not a burden. It's a necessary stage, because in order to find yourself, you must free yourself from the voices that tell you who you should be. Individuation is challenging not only because of isolation, but because it demands you face deep resistances, both internal and external. Your very own unconscious rebels, complexes, traumas, and fears will do everything they can to keep you trapped in old patterns. It's common to feel anxiety, fear, and even guilt for pursuing your authentic path. It's like abandoning the comfort of a safe harbor and sailing into the unknown mystery of your inner ocean. The people around you, especially those who benefited from your conformity, will try to pull you back. Relationships may crumble. Familiar environments may turn hostile, but not out of malice. Rather, because your growth forces them to confront what they've been avoiding. When you become authentic, you break an invisible pact of conformity, and those who still live in that state feel threatened. They prefer to pull you back into the comfort of collective mediocrity. Joseph Campbell, inspired by Jung, described the archetype of the hero, the one who leaves the known world, faces both internal and external challenges, and returns transformed, bringing a treasure, his inner truth. This is the hero's journey, and it perfectly symbolizes the process of individuation. The hero embarks on a quest for himself. He faces monsters that represent his fears, his wounds, his complexes, and upon returning, he is no longer the same. He becomes whole. But, like the hero in myths, you too will face rejection, isolation, and fear. The price of psychological freedom is the loss of the illusion of safety. But what you gain in return is immeasurably more valuable. An authentic life, lived from your own center, not from the external patterns that try to shape you. You've come this far. You've explored how invisible forces, social, psychological, cultural, manipulate you without your awareness. You've understood that true freedom is only achieved when you choose to begin the journey of individuation, the painful yet transformative process of integrating all aspects of your psyche and discovering who you truly are. Jung dedicated his life to these mysteries of the mind. For him, individuation was not a theory, but a vital necessity. Without it, you are doomed to live as a reflection of others' expectations, never touching your true potential. Do you see now? The freedom you so desperately seek cannot be given by anyone. It does not come from approval, nor from success, nor from an identity molded to please others. True freedom begins when you have the courage to look inside and accept everything you find. The traumas you avoided, the shadows you repressed, the beliefs you never questioned. Everything must be brought to light. Only then can you free yourself from all the forces that silently control you. But this freedom comes at a cost. It demands courage, self-awareness, and the willingness to walk in the dark. It is a solitary process. It is often painful, but it is the only path to an authentic life, full, real. As Jung said, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. And when you awaken, no one, nothing will ever control you again, because you will no longer be a projection of what others expect of you. You will be a whole being, alive, true,